Hi, everyone, and welcome to Musings of an Earthbound Alien. I'm your host, Bill D'Souza. In today's episode, we're going to look at social media and why it's not all that social, or avoiding the pitfalls of social media. And I'll also touch on shopping locally, and in my humble opinion, stop being so damn offended. All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back. The question I have is, has the interweb, the internet, the web, made us a smarter generation of humans? Uh, no, it has not. Rather than using our so-called evolved intellect to reason out problems, solve issues, and working together, we have become more insular, argumentative, xenophobic. We've stopped researching facts and seeking out facts and gravitated towards fiction, and just essentially made up garbage. We don't want to have discussions out of fear that someone will disagree with our opinion. And we've really become lazy, choosing to believe anything we see because we don't have the time, or we're not interested in open conversation or learning about the truth based on reality and facts. Part of that statement comes out of where, and keep in mind, this is general terms. This is specifically speaking in general terms. We're not talking about individuals, we're talking about society as a whole. We use social media that we can become less social and inadvertently less informed. Sorry, I should reframe that and throw out some numbers. Okay, this is the factual stuff. So I'm just going to read these numbers to you. And these numbers are from a global web index. It's a market research company. Keep in mind that this market research company's part of their job, part of their function is to make money from selling this information to companies, corporations, that sort of thing. But the information is telling nonetheless. Essentially, 42% of the people that were surveyed suggest that they use social media to stay in touch with friends and what they're doing. Essentially, we're nosy, gossipy, voyeuristic. 41% stay up to date with news and current events. The problem with that is most of the so-called news on social media is made up. That's a given. That's a proven, absolute, non-disputable fact. It has been reviewed by so many research agencies, Pew Research being one of them, and essentially, and I'll get to that in a little bit later, but that even places like Facebook are a harbinger of made up garbage. 40% say that they want to fill up spare time. Basically, this is a tell in statistics because it says 40% of you are basically wasting time surfing your news feed on social media rather than doing something actually constructive. That's actually kind of sad. 37% to find funny or interesting content. All right, I get it. I see there's a legitimate entertainment reason for surfing, if you will. I do it as well. And I have to admit, I might be on occasion one of those 40% that are basically just wasting time and filling spare time. 34% suggest that they use it for general networking with other people. Again, I don't have an issue with this. When the internet first got started, okay, let me rephrase that. When it got popular in the very early boom of the 90s, Newsnet or Usenet news groups were very important for communication, not just email or using a browser to surf the quote internet. But these news groups allowed researchers, and at the time I was a student with Renison College, University of Waterloo, and I used it to communicate with professors doing research. I used it to communicate with other students, not just locally, but around the world. And it was really good to look at other points and this sort of thing. But let's move on. So getting back to that, I can actually see where communication is actually really important. 34% use it because their friends are already on it. 32% to share photos or videos. Okay, I get that. Family and friends sharing photos and videos. 30% to share their opinions. Aye. And there's a lot of opinions to be shared. I suspect that 30% number is actually far higher. They just don't want to admit it. But no matter where you look, no matter which social media platform you look, and by the way, there's a lot, and I'll tell you how many in a minute. But there's a lot of opinions being shared. Opinions that are both legitimately spoken and some out of their ass, essentially. 29% to research new products to buy. I'm not totally sold on the 29. I think it's actually a bit less than that, simply because from what I've seen, from personal experience and people that I have spoken to, and just as a sidebar, 2 years ago, I did a cross-Canada trip via train. I basically flew down to Halifax and I took the train in a period of a 1 month time frame from Halifax to Vancouver, Victoria, and visited dozens of cities and places. And I spoke with hundreds of people. And it was a very interesting trip, which I might share at another occasion. But for this point that I'm trying to make, is that a lot of people will take the opinion of someone else that has used a particular product, but not necessarily realizing, and these are total strangers that they're taking these opinions from a lot of the time, these reviews, product reviews, but they don't realize that a lot of the product reviews might actually be manipulated in a lot of ways. And again, if you look at CBC's Marketplace, they did a 2 or 3 different episodes on this over the last 5-6 years that talk specifically about how these reviews on these various platforms are manipulated either by the corporations, companies, or individuals selling these products, or they are actually removed by the hosting site for these reviews. If they're too negative or whatever, they don't even check it out. They just review. They have a criteria that, or a bot or an individual, a bunch of individuals. Usually, it's a bot that removes reviews based on specific criteria that they have already set up and predetermined about that. And then 27% to meet new people. There's a lot of dating sites out there, to be sure. Not that I've ever used one, but yes, I probably might have used 1 or 2. What we see is far too much that people sharing what they perceive to be true only really spreads the falsehood and the hate and the suspicion and the bigotry, which goes back to the initial statistics where, we 40% use it to spare wasting their spare time or whatever, and then the 41% that's used for updating themselves with certain news and events. Again, you might not even realize it that you're doing it. But we live in a world where 280 characters or less seems to be more interesting in share than. All right, let me restate that because I'm mixing up a couple of issues here. We live in a world where 280 characters, give or take, um, we see more interested in using that word power in sharing recipes and cute kitten videos than having meaningful discussions about solving issues that we're actually complaining about. The majority of the so-called news sites, for example, found on Facebook, are not legitimate news organizations. They're blogs. Um, in sticking with Facebook, because they're my favorite group to hate, even though I use them a lot. They're not the only ones that I have an issue with. But when you look at Facebook and there is a website feature, or not featured, but shared, there's a little icon, a little eye on the right-hand side, and it's basically an information tag. And you click on that and it brings up information on that particular website as far as when it joined or became part of the Facebook family, when it was first posted, and when the specific article that you're referencing was posted and shared. And when you look at those, sometimes they're really interesting in that some of these so-called websites, these news organizations, really only popped up in the last year or so. These are blogs, people. These are individuals' opinions or something it may be something legitimate, but they're not news. They're made by special interest groups. They're made by governments. They're not necessarily local. They're almost always not verifiable, but they're not news sources. And they twist reality to make it look and sound like real news. The 2016 election in the US is a prime example of when you started seeing a number of these so-called news sites turn out to be Russian hacking sites. They basically misinformed the American public on a whole slew of issues, and don't even go there for those people that are believing into these conspiracy theories, because none of that was proven to be true, any of these conspiracy theories. And the reality is, whether it was the FBI or the CIA, NSA, they actually did find that these were the vast majority of these sites spreading false information back in 2016 to be Russian sites. In 2019, in June 2019, the Pew Research Center in the US released a 72-page study, and remember I mentioned this a couple of seconds ago, that looked at the problem of false or misleading news being spread on the internet. 75% of the misinformation, the verifiable misinformation, the fake, made up, or misleading information, was spread by users of social media. Now, it is true that if you want to say, well, that's only 75%, what about the other 25%? Yes, unfortunately, real news agencies, not media companies like Fox, they're not a news agency, they're a media company. Their sole purpose is to sell media and content. And Canada has its own as well, version of that, media garbage. But if you look at actual hard news agencies, hard news departments, they have made their share of blunders. They have picked up on what was actually made up news and ran it as a real story. Fortunately, the vast majority of those were caught within a few hours, and they issued some very, very embarrassing apologies. One example that I will always laugh at is, must be about 5, 6 years now. I'll post it up here in a second, but a few years back. Um, Canadian news agencies, CTV, CBS, not CBS, CBC. Oh, my apologies, CBS. But CBS in the U.S., Fox, or yeah, actually it was Fox as well, CNN. Basically, almost every North American and a couple of Europeans, including BBC, picked up on this news story, this video that was making the rounds and being shared as news of a very large eagle or hawk or bird that swooped down in a park where these people were playing with their toddler infant son, and swooped down into and picked this child up and carried him off, and only for whatever reason let go of the child. Luckily, the child wasn't hurt. It was faked. The people that made it were basically the university students that came out afterwards. They didn't even realize at first that this was picked up as news. They came out and said, guys, this isn't real. We did this as a project for our university class on film editing, and like, ooh, really sorry. Yeah. Anyway, a lot of agencies, a lot of reporters had to apologize for not verifying the information. But see, at the very least, what this proves is that real news agencies will, even if it's late, will still fact check and verify information. It's those agencies that don't fact check, these companies, these individuals that do not fact check, that don't verify this stuff, that cause the problems, because their fake, misleading garbage, this misinformation is still being spread. The other issue around social media is the anonymity. The ability to remain anonymous while being social is the very opposite of what the word social is supposed to mean. If one dares to begin a conversation, for example, those opposed will begin to bully and rant and rave about liberal this and whiny that, until he or she backs down and crawls away. I'm not going to obviously name names, but I was speaking with a woman that I know today. I actually heard about this about a week ago, and I managed to get a hold of her today just to confirm and verify exactly what happened. And I was hoping to get an interview with her, but unfortunately she wasn't available tonight anyways. But essentially what happened was, there is a program on one of the video services that a number of people began to watch. And others who, just by looking at the odd clip or the title or comments made by other people about this show, decided that this program was promoting pedophilia and exploitation of children and this sort of thing. Not like those beauty pageants in the US for decades that have been promoting pedophilia and sexualization of friggin' toddlers. No, we won't go there, but we'll talk about a program on one of these video services that, again, without even watching the program. Now, I personally have never seen this show, and I'm not going to name the show, but what my friend tells me is that some of her friends, what she thought were friends, made comments about her comments. And really, some of these comments were quite hurtful and out of left field. And again, without knowing the context of what she was saying, essentially badgered her. Now, she didn't back down, but she did remove the original post and reposted something else. Not an apology, but by means of an explanation is, look, the program that you are criticizing, that you've never actually seen, is about this, 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 and this. It's about the story behind the initial title and occasional imagery that you might see that might look like exploitation and actually is, but that's not what the show was about. The show is about the backstory, and the person that wrote that show, that directs that show, it's her story, it's her life story, and she's basically saying, this is what happened to me, don't let this happen to other people. But it's about that. It's about the system that allows for this to happen. My point in bringing that up, though, is that those people that tend to bully and rant about liberal this and whiny that, until someone backs down, from what I have seen personally, the numbers that I have seen, is well within the majority of people. I would even go so far as to say 7 or 8 out of 10. And again, I don't have the specific facts to back up that number, but I will say that openly, knowing that some of you will pick up on that issue. But that number comes from, again, personal experience in dealing with the bullying and all the rest of it that I have had to talk to others about. My background, by the way, what I went to university for after I got out of the military was social work and specifically focused on child maltreatment. So yes, and I have worked for a children's aid society in Ontario. And again, I will not name that agency, but I have worked for that social agency, that children's aid. And I have done the research, and I have seen the effects of what these sorts of abuses can look at, can affect on children and adults alike. So I do speak from some experience when I talk about that. And it's funny that those people that are saying a lot of the bullying, that are pushing a lot of this garbage out there, have no idea what they're even talking about. They're basically picking up on some conspiracy, this, that, or the next thing, and following the flow. They're basically, it's a group mentality that pushes a fake issue. In 2018, the same Pew Research Center survey showed that 60% of teens have experienced some form of cyberbullying. Now, those are US numbers, but the Canadian numbers are actually very similar to that. And the cyberbullying that we see, it goes along racialized grounds. It goes along indigenous, anti-indigenous lines. It goes along things like image bullying. It has caused a horrendous amount of hurt. You have no fucking idea, if you are the bully, what kind of hurt that sort of stuff causes. And it makes me angry from a personal standpoint. I know it makes a lot of people angry. But that anonymity of social media, where their username is not Bill D'Souza, me. The username is 123 Nutbar. It's a fake name, obviously. But it's something where that cyberbullying is almost enhanced by that anonymity. And this has been brought up many times, and social media agencies still have not corrected the problem. They say they've tried. Oh, we put in things in place. We put in systems and software and bots and processes and rules in place. They're not being fucking followed. Cyberbullying is basically any type of harassment, threatening or demeaning language. It can also involve embarrassing other people online. It's typically done through mean comments, online rumors, or even sexual remarks. This is not being social. It's bullying because you disagree with an opinion. Are you nuts? Are you high? Because you must be. But, excuse me, this is my point about social media. Not only do you have the issue of fake news, misleading information, but tie that in with the other aspect of social media that is the very negative aspect of social media that goes along with the fake news, misleading, conspiracy crap, and that's the bullying that takes place. One pushes the other, one encourages the other on many levels. I mean, really, do you have to do that? Well, apparently some people are mentally disturbed to the point where they do seem to have to do that. They don't, by the way, as a social research background, as part of my studies, many of these same people don't behave like this in public. You'll find that a lot of them actually are completely different in public amongst family or friends. Yes, you will have some that behave identical. They are the exact same way, no matter in what setting, in what context. But in general terms, the vast majority, you will never even know unless you know that this is the person based on this anonymity, these anonymous handles that they're using. Unless you know that person from that, you might not even realize what they're actually like. The bullying, the anonymous or not, because you disagree with another person's opinion is not logical. It's dumb. It's childish. It's not being social. We escape into reality TV that's so far removed from reality that we hide from authenticity. We read less and we fear more. There's over 280 social media websites. And so when I say websites, I'm including the website, the applications for cell phone, tablets, computers, whatever. Some are country specific. Russia, China, and even North Korea has only an internal internet and only for the elite. They have their own version of social media, which obviously is carefully monitored. But other countries may have country specific, others that are global, but there's still 280, and I mean over 280, social media applications. And some of them are geared specifically for the racist jackass that's out there, the homophobic, the bigot. It's wrong. That insular behavior that we have taken on as a general society at large has trained people over the decades to be less social. This actually started even before the internet. This started long before the internet. Conspiracy theories have been around since people climbed out of trees back in, hundreds of thousands of years ago when humans first started to walk upright. And we gravitated towards cliques and familial groups, and we feared what was different. We feared what was essentially not part of our group. This is not a new phenomenon. But what the internet has done is to move that same phenomenon to a global perspective and heightened our awareness of the problem. It's pushed polite society into being less polite and distant over the years. People are afraid to communicate and to be open, to say, I disagree with your opinion. Look, I have done that. My ex-wife, which I still, we are the best of friends today, will say that I was not the most open-minded individual and very opinionated, and she would be absolutely correct. I was one of those people that said, I'm right, you're wrong, and no matter what, I'm never going to agree with you. And I actually did remember that at one point in time when I said that out loud. I'd like to think I've matured since then. But the reality is, while me on a personal level can actually say that, and trust me, a lot of people know that I will say that out loud, that I disagree with your opinion, or I'll say that you're wrong. And you should be able to say the same thing. You should be able to turn around to someone that, whether it's a loved one, a family member, friend, relative, acquaintance, it makes no difference. Stranger on a bus, on a train, on a plane. You should be able to say, as a human being, which I'm not admitting whether I'm human or not, because sometimes I don't even want to be part of the human race, especially after some of the stuff that I've seen and heard. But there should never be a problem with you saying, I disagree. Have a conversation. You're not trying to change that person's opinion. They shouldn't be trying to change your opinion. But saying that you disagree with someone just means you have a conversation. If they explain to you a little bit more detail as to why they have that particular opinion, and you explain to them why you disagree with it and what your opinion is on a specific subject, whether it's politics, religion, is irrelevant. My former mother-in-law, who on occasion still exchange handwritten letters, is very religious. I am not. I'm a card-carrying atheist. But it's irrelevant because I still respect her opinion. There is nothing wrong just because somebody believes in a religion. If you come to my door and you start pushing that religion on me, saying that whatever I believe or don't believe is wrong and immoral and this, that, and the next thing, yeah, I will then be offended, and I will explain to you exactly why I'm offended. But I still defend your right to have your own opinion. Just don't push it. If I say, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, and you continue to push it, that crosses a line with me. But because the usual response these days for someone when you say, I'm sorry, I can't agree with that. The usual response is for them to yell back at you, fuck you then. What the hell kind of attitude is that? Just because somebody disagrees with you doesn't mean that they're trying to belittle you. So what? They disagree. It's irrelevant. They have their own opinion. They're allowed to have their own opinion. I served 10 years in the Canadian Armed Forces, and I know I have many friends that are still part of the forces across the country, active serving members and retired, that I still communicate with. And even if I disagree with, for example, a political opinion, I still respect their opinion to vote a specific way. They may vote conservative in Canada. I may vote liberal in Canada. I have a few friends that vote NDP in Canada. And Green. It doesn't make any difference. So what? Everyone has a different opinion on the same subject. It's okay. I know one person in particular that he hates the liberals, cannot stand them. But him and I can still have a meaningful, respectful conversation about the subject without the other one being offended. I mean, come on. We try and teach our children to not do that and to have these conversations. And as adults, we turn around and say, well, fuck you then. Maybe it's time adults grow up. The thing to remember is be mindful of the media you think is social. It is not social. It is a media. It is a medium that you can use to exchange information, but be mindful of it because some of that information that you're exchanging is not real. Because in the long term, it is making you far less part of the real community. You know, outside, you look out the window once in a while, or you go to work either on a bus or whatever, or even if you drive and you're on the highway or in the city, you see people walking, right? You do see them. You see people in other cars. Well, guess what? They're part of your community, whether you know them or not. It's turning society at large into a more remote, cynical, and isolated people. We're indifferent to the real world and the diversity of the human population. It's who we are. If you want to be social, you don't have a choice. You must be social. If you disagree with someone, that's fine. But you don't have to be rude. You don't have to bully them because your real name isn't exposed. But the idea that the real world that some of you apparently don't live in consists of diversity. If you don't get that, I question your civility. I question your morals. And I question who you are as an individual. Because clearly, you just don't get it. Embrace the difference and experience of life. Just because you see a video on Facebook doesn't mean it's real. Just because you see a post on Facebook doesn't mean it's a news post. Even the ads. So many of these ads are faked. They're called clickbait. There's no toothpaste that will put dentists out of work. There's no pill or food that will cause you to lose weight or grow brain cells. There's no device that will save you thousands of dollars on gas every year. There's no website that will get you up to 90% off brand name goods. And gentlemen, there's no pill or cream to make your penis larger or you more desirable to women. Obviously, a lot of them are faked. They're clickbait. They're a marketing scheme. And guys, really, the penis ones, you fell for that? Women, don't laugh. Because I've seen many women, I know a lot of women that I've met in my life that will spend hundreds of dollars every single year, some into the thousands, I would imagine, but I'm exaggerating, of course, when I say that, hundreds, on creams and gels and pills and devices to make various body parts bigger, shinier, duller, more hair, less hair, smoother, wrinkle-free. Stop falling for deceptive ads and fake marketing. Stop sharing wild and phony claims from people that you don't even know and people that really are only interested in taking your money for things you don't know anything about with made-up quasi-scientific names and can harm you. Stop being so defensive. Just because somebody has a different opinion, so what? You don't have to hate them. You don't have to ignore them. All you have to do is say, I respect your right to your opinion. You may not respect the opinion, but you still should respect the fact that the person has a right to their opinion. I will defend everyone's opinion, like I said before. The only time with me, on a personal level, that it crosses that line, and thank goodness in Canada, and I agree with this, even though I have some friends that do disagree with this part of it, we do have laws in this country that do prohibit hate speech. And there is a fine line where free speech becomes hate speech. And it promotes violence. Speech should not promote violence. Speech should promote thought. Whether you agree with it or not, it should provoke a reaction. But the reaction should be thought. How can you legitimately have a counter argument with someone you disagree with if what they're telling you doesn't provoke thought? It doesn't move you to think in a logical, concise, and thoughtful manner. To use big words. Saying, well, fuck you then, is not using your big words. It means you're an idiot. The ability to think should be ingrained in every single adult that's out there. We go to school to learn to think. Unfortunately, some people probably missed that class. It essentially comes down to, and again, I'm going to repeat myself, just because someone has a different opinion, so what? Stop being a stereotype for indifference and hate. Stop following so-called influencers and think for yourself. Unless you're a Star Trek fan and you know who the Kardashians are, they are not the freaking Kardashians. Why are you following them? Why are you watching them? Why are you giving them your money? Their entire ability to make money is based on your stupidity. Think for yourself and stop being influenced by these idiots. Have your own opinions, thoughts, and feelings. Develop your own tastes and style. Stop giving a crap what other people think about you. Not everyone will agree with you. I sure as hell know that a lot of you will disagree with me. And I'm okay with that. You should be as well. It's time we stop taking social media to the wrong level by making it less social. Okay? You want social media to become more social? Then I think you're going to have to rethink your use of social media. I think you're going to have to rethink what you're sharing. And you're going to have to rethink what you're saying and how you're saying it. Because otherwise, sorry, man, that is not being social. All right? Take a break. Go have a tea. We'll be right back. And I'm going to tell you why it's really important to shop local. Okay? See you in a second. And we're back. And this is going to be really fast. We're in a pandemic. The last time the world as a whole saw a pandemic like this was back in 1918. And the influenza virus is real, and it has caused a tremendous amount of hardship. In my day job, I have come across a number of people, about 3 or 4 dozen, personally that I've spoken with, that have been laid off, lost their jobs, and this is local, but it's been like this across the world. In your community, whether you know it or not, you might be one that have lost their jobs, got laid off, is in Canada, we have unemployment, we have a social net. Thank goodness for that social net. Sucks to be you in the States right now, because I see what's going on down there through the real news, and unfortunately, it's not pretty. That's social media. Not social media. Should put that on the blooper reel. But that social net has helped a lot of people, but it's not perfect. People need to go back to work. And when the second wave starts to peter out, however long it takes before that happens, when that starts to go and we start hiring people back, we need to remember something really important. We need to shop locally. Before we get on the internet and we start going to Amazon or eBay or Wish, why the hell you even go there, I don't even know. But on Amazon, let's say, and you go on the store's website, it kind of puts people out of work because the money's not staying local. If you take the time, depending on the city you live in, I understand that if you're in a small town, if you're in a small city, you may not have access to some of the products that you need from your local suppliers, your local stores. And yes, I get that, where shopping on Amazon, for example, is the only way that some people may find specific sizes, if you know, or product for a specific from a specific manufacturer or whatever, or you go onto the manufacturer's website directly and you order from them, because you just can't find that locally. And I understand that. But check out what you have local first. Go to the stores, phone them up. Look up the phone number, look up the address of local stores that may actually carry what you're trying to find. Take a walk, take a bus, Uber it, taxi it, drive down there, dog sled, I don't care how. Get to the stores and buy local. Because we need to keep people employed. We need to keep these stores going. They have a deal with you. Every store has a deal with you, the citizenry of every single community. People open these businesses to make money, but in that process of them making money and becoming successful, part of that is to supply you, the consumer, with the goods that you have asked for in the past and will continue to ask for. It's important that we respect that pact, that agreement, that unwritten agreement between you, the consumer, and the vendor, the store owner. It's important that we spend our money locally first before we spend it in some nameless corporation out of the US or China or wherever. It's important to keep people employed here. When I go to my local Walmart, if that's the only place, and I will tell you right now, Walmart is always the last place I'll go. I'll go to Giant Tiger, I'll go to Canadian Tire, I'll go to Loblaws, I'll go to Metro. I will go to every store first before I decide I need to go to Walmart, if Walmart is the only place that I can find what I am looking for. But even going there, I have made it, and as a matter of fact, to be honest, even if I go to my local Loblaws for groceries, it doesn't matter where I go. If they have a self-serve, I will not use their self-serve cash. If all they have is self-serve and they don't have an actual cashier behind the till, I will put down the product and walk right out without buying anything. Because, and to me, it's the same as shopping locally. I would like to see the student, the retiree, the on the mom that or dad or whatever, the whoever is working there. I want to see them working there. I want to see them employed. If Walmart wants to pay me, like physically, give me a paycheck every time I go to your store and I use the self-checkout, fine, I'll use self-checkout. But if you're paying someone to be behind the cash, then that's the person I'm going to go see. I want my money to be spent locally. And if we all do that, we employ students, we employ seniors, we employ people that want to work. Men, women, it doesn't make any difference. If you want to work, they will find employment because we are spending the money locally. Stores want to sell things and they want to be able to hire staff to sell us things. It's what keeps the economy going. In Canada, it's what allows us to pay taxes so that we don't get shafted when we go to a hospital or a doctor, where our social safety net includes medicine, where it includes the ability for us in Canada to not spend $30,000 and mortgage the house because you're about to have a child, where you get sick and it's either, well, you're going to die or you're going to get cured. You have insurance? Sorry, it's not the right kind of insurance, so you're going to die. Pick one. In Canada, we don't have to worry about that as much. But where do you think the taxes are to pay for that? We have employed people. The only way to keep them employed is to spend locally. The local Canadian Tire, Loblaws, even though these are large Canadian corporations, the local mom and pop, the franchise owners, the ones that have dry cleaners, the ones that have pet shops, antique markets, whatever, carpet stores, pharmacies, it doesn't make any difference. If you don't shop locally and you continue to buy everything, including friggin' groceries, hello, from Amazon, are you nuts? And as I say that, I realize I'm just doing exactly what I said that I wouldn't do in the previous segment by kind of cyberbullying, and I do apologize. I shouldn't have said, are you nuts? But it comes down to, what do you want out of your community? It's a really simple equation. If you don't spend for what you need and what you want in your own community, you're going to lose that community. You're going to have stores boarded up in the downtown main streets. The local malls and the suburban areas will shut down. Why would they stay open if nobody's going there? Because you're buying all your crap on eBay and Amazon and Wish and all these other places. If there's a specific reason why you have to shop at Amazon, what I would suggest to you is to justify that reason. If it's a specific size, I'll give you an example, my own. If I have to have a specific size shirt, jacket, whatever, if I go to the big and tall, I'm 6'4". And if I can't find what I'm looking for at the big and tall, my first question or my first action is not to walk out of the store in a huff and say, and I'm going to go on Amazon and buy it. My first question for them is, can you get that size? Can you get that style? Can you get that color? Can you get what I came in to look for? 9 out of 10 times, they have said to me, yes. Or they might have another branch, another store somewhere else in another city, in another part of town that they can have it shipped to, or I can, if it's within the same town, I can go there. But it's only that 1 or 2 times out of 10 that they cannot find it, then yeah, I don't have a choice. I will go on Amazon and I will purchase what I need. But that's like a last resort. People, you really, really, really need to focus on what you're doing. Don't go straight to the internet. Go out into the stores. Phone. Go on the store's website. Even if it's a corporation for a store. Another example, you look at corporations for a store. I prefer my shoes to be New Balance. No, they have not paid me. If they want to, they can, but they have not paid me to say this. There's only a couple of stores that would carry my size of New Balance and have access to all of the styles that the company, which is an American company, actually carries. And sorry, just being distracted here. But it's the ability for them to be able to at least order it. And then I don't mind waiting a week or two at that point in time, because what happens is I still help the store to stay, even though it's a chain, I still help local people employed. I still keep them employable at that store. I allow them, by me spending money there, rather than going on to the main company website and buying from them and have it shipped to the US, I go to the local store and I help those students, those adults, those people that work at that store to maintain employment at that store. Just think. That's all I'm asking, is think before you go anywhere else for products or services. Try and shop locally first, because it's really important to help the economy rebound after the pandemic starts to subside, once we have a vaccine, once we start to have fewer and fewer people sick and in intensive care. It's important. The country depends on it. And I don't want to sound melodramatic, because I know I am sounding melodramatic, but we as a society depend on that local shopping first before you go outside onto the internet and do your shopping that way. That's all I have to say on that. All right? When I come back, in my humble opinion, stop being so friggin' offended. Okay. Hopefully the distraction will subside. Anyway, this is going to be real fast, because I think I dealt with this. I've said it. It's done to death in the previous segment. But in my humble opinion, really, this whole thing about people being offended about everything bothers me for one reason and one reason only. I don't care if you're offended. I really don't. I don't give a rat's ass. I don't give a damn if you want to be offended about something that I say or do. That's your problem. That's your issue to deal with, in the sense that that's your feelings that you have to justify. I don't need to justify anything to you. But the part that bothers me is when companies, municipalities, organizations, universities, because you, an individual, are offended, you write a offending letter to the powers that be, and they cancel an event because of your offense. It deprives other people from enjoying what they may want to enjoy, whether it's a lecture or anything like that. As I said before in the first segment, I agree with limits on free speech. Speech isn't free by any stretch of the imagination. People have fought wars and revolutions over the ability and access to free speech. People have died defending the right of free speech. One of the things that I see as my service in the Canadian Armed Forces for 10 years, between 1980 and 1990, was part of what I was defending during the Cold War, was free speech. Not the only thing. I wasn't, at that time, late teens, early 20s, I wasn't so idealistic to think that was specifically what I was there for. I wanted the adventure and the fun. But I always knew that service was important. And part of that service, part of your oath, part of your commitment was to defend the rights of Canadians. And one of the rights that we have within our charter, within our Constitution, is the ability to speak openly. And almost every free country in the West has that same ability, that same clause, if you will, section within their constitutional hierarchy. The ability for them, the ability for individuals to speak freely about whatever subject that they feel is important to them. The ability to assemble and protest something they feel strongly about. Unless, anyway, I'm not even going to mention what's going on in the US right now because they have their own special problems. And I feel bad for them. But that being said, just because I might disagree with someone as they are speaking openly and freely, doesn't mean that I should be offended about it. I may not like what they have to say. They don't care if I like it or not. That's my issue. And as in the previous segment, I am quite willing to say, well, I disagree with you. Let's have a conversation about that. Tell me why you think this is like that. And I will tell you why I think this is like that. And let's have a tea. Let's have a coffee. We'll go for a beer. And we talk. We discuss. Just because someone is offended doesn't mean that something needs to stop. When I hear a municipality pulling the plug on an event because 3 or 4 people wrote letters, woo, you have 1 to 3 million people in a municipality and 3 people or even 300 people wrote letters condemning the individual's right to speak because they disagree with it. And all of a sudden you're pulling the plug and the tickets might have been sold out in the thousands? Come on. You, the municipality, and the bureaucracy responsible for that decision, fucked up. Because that is the dumbest thing you could have done. When I hear about a university, and this is even worse, when I hear a university, when a student group gets someone, whether it's within Canada or another country, to come to that university to give a talk on a specific subject, I might even think that that individual is vile and an idiot themselves, and really your ideas and thoughts on race and culture and homophobia and what you think might be a woman's right or not right, I really don't give a damn about. I would disagree with a lot of the stuff. But come on, the students that might be against this person because they're protesting, you know what? Protest all you want. But do not stop the individual from having that discussion amongst his or her supporters, because what you've done is you have in fact bullied the university into canceling those lectures just because you disagree with it. Guess what? Universities used to be, in my day and before, bastions of free speech. Just because you disagree with someone doesn't mean shit. It's okay to disagree with someone without, you can even write letters. But the fact that you're writing letters demanding that whatever the action is, whatever the speech is, whatever the event is, be canceled because, oh my gosh, you're offended. You have just become your own worst enemy. There's an old saying, be careful what you wish for. Because what you think you want may not actually be what you want. Because there's a slippery slope. And my friends are probably laughing at me right now because, again, I do have limits. I still agree with the laws in Canada that allow for free speech, but there's a limit to the free speech where if it crosses a line and it promotes violence. I'll give you an example. I think that person with that skin color or that accent or that flag should be lynched. You just crossed a fucking line. Problem is, that actually is said a lot. And those people that say that have crossed that line. I no longer promote their ability for free speech. Now I'm offended to the point where I want them charged because that incites violence. And we have seen this shit in the US in the last year, especially. 2020 has not been good for a few countries. It's been worse for them. Black Lives Matter, they have a right to say what they have. They have a right to protest. They have a reason to protest. You may not agree with the protests. You may not agree with the term Black Lives Matter. But you're missing the point. You're disagreeing with them. You're offended by them as a group, as in them, as in Black Lives Matter as a group, as an organization. You're offended by that organization because of the name, but you're not considering what that name means to them and what it should mean to every single person who thinks for 5 seconds. Deeply think, as in using your brain cells to realize what that actually means. Those individuals that say all lives matter, yeah, all lives do matter, but it's irrelevant because what they are talking about when they say Black Lives Matter is the racism, this systemic racism and abuse that they have suffered, the segregation that they have had to put up with in the US and other countries, but because this organization essentially started and grew out of the US experience. We'll just mention that as the example. But because of that, they're fed up with it. They're finally saying, enough. We don't want to be shot because you think I'm a bad person because of my skin color. We don't want to be beaten up or lynched because I got a job and you didn't because of my skin color. Even though 9 out of 10 times it's because of their abilities and their skills and their experience that they got that job. We don't want to be segregated or treated as a second, third, or fourth class citizen in the country that they were born in, that their parents were born in, that their grandparents and great grandparents and whatever were brought over as slaves. They're tired of it. And that's why they have taken up the moniker Black Lives Matter. It's not a slight on the police and blue lives. It's not a slight on the rest of society. It's an acknowledgement that they're sick and tired of being treated like the non-humans some people treat them as. The Indigenous people in Canada and around, and again, different countries, but let's focus on Canada because we've had some serious issues here. Up until not that long ago, and even up until a couple of weeks ago, the racism and the systemic abuse and systemic race issues that the Indigenous community have faced in this country is appalling. We should be embarrassed. I also have thoughts about within the Indigenous community itself some issues they have that they need to deal with that they're not admitting to. They're not facing up to their own issues because it's easier to blame the colonialism. Colonialism is a serious issue. It has caused much of what we as a society has done or not done, not supported to specific groups within Canada, specific cultural and ethnic Indigenous groups within Canada. We need to stop. Stop being offended by everything just because someone says something. Just because somebody puts up a gay pride flag, a rainbow flag on their house doesn't mean that the entire neighborhood has gone gay. And if it has, who gives a fuck? Are you jealous that nobody's coming on to you? Is that what it is? Because seriously, I couldn't give a rat's ass who someone loves. I couldn't give a rat's ass who someone prays to. I could care less what color their skin is. I don't give a damn what accent they have or what their mother tongue is or where they originally came from. Everyone in this country is a frickin' immigrant. Even the Indigenous population never just, poop, that's it, formed in Canada. If you want to know, look at history, look at anthropology. Humans came from Africa, people. We basically crawled out of the friggin' trees thousands and thousands of years ago and migrated over those thousands of years to various parts of the planet. Things have changed a lot since then, but attitudes, this clickiness that we have, these familiar groups where we break ourselves down into tribes and economic zones and language issues and religious issues. I mean, come on. It's the 21st frickin' century. Grow up already. We're no longer in the trees. We're no longer walking on our knuckles. We walk upright. We speak language, many languages. We are a diverse group of humans. We don't need to behave this way. And you being offended every single time someone says something, to the point where you're going to start letter writing and you're going to form groups and you're going to go out and protest to the point where you want something shut down because you disagree with it. Protest all you want, but don't expect for things to be shut down because of it. Don't expect for a university to cancel a lecture because you disagree with the person. That person might be a racist shit. I agree. But if you're gonna be offended by everything and you're gonna start yelling and screaming and getting these things stopped, you're basically driving the racism underground, which is worse. You want to keep, if people are going to be racist, I'm sorry, I prefer if they're going to be racist out in public, because then we can identify those individuals and avoid them like the plague, no pun intended. We need to stop being offended. And the joke meme going around the internet these days is, oh, Karen's offended again. I get people that actually are called Karen may not appreciate that meme, that joke, and it is kind of bad. But there is one aspect to that that's true. These people that get offended because of your skin color, these people that get offended because of your language, these people that get offended because of your accent, these people that get offended because you're just not like them. You pray to some imaginary God, not like their imaginary God, because their imaginary God is a good God. Yours is bad. They know nothing about you. You shouldn't be offended by them. You should laugh at them and say, are you fucking nuts? Because you know what? That's what they deserve. You flip them the bird or you just ignore them. They're not worth your effort to be upset. They're not worth your time to get upset. Because people like that are not worth the time of day. And you shouldn't be offended just because someone says something. You could be hurt. You should feel sad and disappointed that there are still people like that around. But to be offended by it, they're not worth that offense. And if you're offended because of what I'm saying, again, too bad. That's your issue to deal with. That's your issue. That's your own emotion that you have to deal with. I don't have to deal with your emotions. And I will not deal with your emotions. And feel free to say whatever you want in the comments because I'm not screening them out. But if you agree with me and you see some of these idiotic comments show up in the comments, it's fine. You can say whatever you want in defense or in disagreement, but don't start arguing with these people. They're not worth your time. We need to stop being offended by everybody, by everything. Stop being offended by color. Stop being offended by shape. Stop being offended by language. Stop being offended by a flag. Stop being offended by everything. Just stop. Mind your own freaking business. Enjoy your own life. Enjoy life for the diversity that life brings. I'm not being preachy when I say that. That's the reality. You live on one planet. Until human beings spread and go out and colonize other planets, and at the rate we're going, we're barely going to get off our own planet. But let's say by some strange luck of the draw, we are able to colonize. You know what? I fear at that point in time, because all you're going to have is humans on one planet being offended by somebody on another planet and starting wars between planets. Because you see it happening now on this planet. Bosnia, Herzegovina, the former Yugoslavia. Look at the war that took place there. Ethnic cleansing on both sides. Hundreds of people, into the thousands, dead. Murdered because of fucking religion? Get a life. Hundreds of people killed. Millions of people killed around the world. I was going to bring up one other example, specific or micro example, but I'm going to go global here. Millions and millions of people around the world are being killed today because somebody's fucking offended because of somebody else's religion. How stupid does that sound? It's time to stop being offended. It's time to stop minding other people's business. Live your own life. Enjoy life. It's the only fucking life you're going to get. Does it make me angry? Damn right it makes me angry. Because it's idiotic to be offended about every single thing. We need to stop. We need to stop fighting each other. Enough. Because personally, I've had it. And I don't hold back. There's no more filter. I'm 57. I use my metric age, 37. Women, 37. Hey. But the reality is, you only have one life. We only have one planet. We need to stop killing each other over stupidity. We need to stop killing each other over being offended. Just stop. And that filter that doesn't exist anymore, when I see that kind of stupidity, I actually say things now. And I know I'm 6'4", and I'm a fairly powerful individual. I am intimidating. Yes, I have been told that. Very few people will stand up to me. They will walk away. But my point is, it doesn't make any difference your size, your stature. You need to speak up. You need to say something when you see that sort of injustice, when you see that faux offense. You need to say something. It's time for people to stop being offended and go away. Mind your own business. Enjoy your life. And I will enjoy mine. All right? Now, this is the third episode of Musings of an Earthbound Alien, and I know the last the three episodes have been pretty hefty on the condemnation and on, the subject matter. The next episode, however, is dedicated to all the geeks out there. One thing that we are definitely going to look at is Star Wars versus Star Trek. Hey, how can I pass that up? We're also going to look at Jerry Anderson. And if you don't know who he is, you may want to do some research ahead of time. I'm not going to give it away, though. But I grew up with a lot of the Jerry Anderson productions out there. And I love the stuff that he did. It's corny, but it's so much fun, especially as a geek. And in my humble opinion, we'll talk geekness and our place in the world. Because you know what? It's not the rich that's going to rule the world. It's not the powerful that rules the world. It's the geek. But I'll tell you why, in my humble opinion, on the next episode. All right? Take care and be safe out there. Bye-bye now.